the last one of the night. I'm gonna try to talk through this one. All right. Or maybe not. We'll just be quiet. ASMR our way through this one. So, already thrown 9. It's my 10th one of the night, and then I'm gonna call it quits. Slap it down. Well, I want this to stick to the wheel head. So I just kind of give it a little bit of pounding, but I'm also sort of centering it at the same time. Like if I see that it's not quite in the middle, I can kind of, you know, smack it. Move it till it's pretty much in the middle. Now the next stage is that I need centering. I'm going to get it very wet. So really sloppy on there so that I can, you know, make it greasy. And wheel's gonna be turning at maximum speed for this. So get her going. Knees close to the splash rim, splash, whatever you call the thing, the container. And arms anchored there so that I've got a lot of strength and stability here. And, oh, see, that's what I didn't want to happen. Started to slide around. This surface is too slick. So I'm gonna try to press it down a little more. This is what happens when the torque of rotation is more powerful than, I don't know, what would you call that? The stickiness of the clay onto the surface of the wheel head. This technique here is called coning, and it does 2 things. First of all, it helps me to center the clay better, but it also introduces more moisture into the clay, because this clay in particular is really tough. It's a dark granite by PSH. I bought it from another member here at the workshop who didn't like it because the clay was too firm. Personally, I rather like a firm clay, so I don't mind that. I'm used to working with the black clay, which has a lot of iron oxide in it, and it's also very groggy. Groggy is a term that means that it has grog in it. Grog is a powdered clay, but it's not clay actually, it's stoneware. It's when you've taken the clay, you've bisque fired it already, and that turns the clay chemically into ceramic. It can no longer be turned back into this mushy clay substance after that's happened, because it is chemically altered. But then what you do is you take that, you smash it up and powder it, pulverize it, and turn it into a substance called grog. So here's the funny thing, why you put grog into clay. I didn't think this was going to turn into a lesson, but I'm going to talk through it. This stuff here, when it's wet, even when it's bone dry and it has no actual water in it, there's still water molecules in the clay that when you fire it the first time, they remove from the clay, and that makes the clay shrink. Now, when different parts of the clay shrink at different rates, that produces cracking. We don't want our clay to crack when it's being fired. So in order to prevent that from happening, you mix your wet clay with grog. Grog is a version of clay that has already been fired, so it's not going to shrink. Kind of like, I don't know, adding aggregate to your cement. You're putting more of a solid, non-shrinking substance and mixing it in with the stuff that shrinks quite a bit. And commercially prepared clays have that stuff already in it. Anyways, This is a groggy clay, and that means that throwing it tends to be kind of heavy, and it doesn't shrink as much as some other clays, but it does make throwing it, it's a little more firm. Also, the end result of this clay is more, it won't be as smooth as something like ceramic. It will have a sandpaper rough kind of texture when we're all done, which is fine with me. I like that. I'm going to use this wooden tool here to clean the skirt. So down here at the bottom, like I've got it centered down to about there, like half a centimeter from the wheel head, but this bit here, it's still wobbly, and that's hard to get rid of, so I'm just cut it away. I use that with this tool here. I've had this tool since I was in university. Got it in 1991 when I was taking ceramics classes at the University of Waterloo, taught by the famous Ann Roberts. And yeah, I've had it ever since. These clays, if you take care of your stuff, can last a really long time. Okay, now I'm plunging my thumbs down into the middle. This is creating what's called a well. And the well gets a little water in it. Once again, the middle of this clay is still really firm. Like, I don't know if you noticed when I was centering the clay, but I really had to put a lot of force into it because it's kind of dry and firm. So get some water into the middle, and that helps it to loosen up some. Now the next bit I'm going to do, this is called pulling. Literally just taking the clay and pulling it upwards. That's done by providing compression pressure. Basically, I'm pushing from the inside and the outside at the same time, moving my hands in an upward motion. And that causes, like, the clay has nowhere to go but upward because I'm, putting that pressure on. I'll do just a little gentle pull first. My hand position is basically that. So I've got a knuckle on the outside, or like this part of my finger, and then on the inside, the pad and, well, this part of the other finger. So I'm creating this space in between two fingers, and the rest of my fingers my hands are just like providing structure for that, so that I have a really good sense of how far apart my fingers are, and I can therefore tell how thick the walls of my cylinder are as I'm pulling. I can tell if there are thick spots or thin spots that need to get a little extra compression. So that was one small pull, but I'm going to do a couple more. So I'm putting quite a bit of pressure from the outside in right now. Oh, right, I have to slow that wheel down or I'm going to end up with a big mess. On the inside, I'm really not giving it that much pressure. I'm just providing a little support. But I want to make sure that the clay goes nowhere but up. And I don't want to do too much at once. I watch people on YouTube, like master potters, that have been doing this for much longer and much more often than I have, and they just do one or two really quick pulls, whoop, whoop, and they're just done. I'm not in a hurry. I'm here all night. I know if I was a production potter and I had to make 200 of these in a day, I'd have a really different attitude about it all, but I'm here at the studio at night. There's nobody else around, and I'm not in a hurry. This is the last pot of the night. Then I'm just gonna clean up and do a little glazing and go home. Anyways, my point is, I don't mind doing 3, 4, 5 gentle pulls. And I also don't mind if making a pot takes 10 minutes, 15 minutes, maybe even 20, 25. If I'm talking the whole time, it takes a lot longer. All right, I'm gonna do another pull. Pushing my finger down in the middle on the bottom a little more because that bottom is still, it's too rounded. I want it to have a flat profile down there. That gets more of the clay from the base out towards the walls where it can be pulled upward. And slow it down a little more. I can feel some spots that are a little thinner than the other areas, so I've got to lock my hands in this position and really pay attention to the width of the walls of that cylinder. This maneuver at the end of each pull is compressing the rim. If you just pull it up and leave a bunch of loose gunk on the rim, it will accumulate, fling around because it's spinning, get messy. And ultimately, if you don't compress your rim and get it all nice and centered, it will eventually start to go off balance and you'll get a wiggle. You get a wiggle in your cylinder. Nobody likes that. All right, well, it's a pretty decent height. It's not, massive, but I'm gonna do one more. Trying to get more of that clay from the very bottom pushed upward. And there again, I have to be careful because, yeah, that's a little better. I don't want the brim to be that wide, so I'm going to do a technique called collaring in, and that's literally get my hands like right around, like you're going to choke the thing, and turn the speed up a little bit, and just slowly enclose it and pull it inward, and then gently release so that it maintains its roundness. That's collaring in, taking something wide and just compressing it inwards, which will, that's how I want the final shape to be. There's quite a bit of water in the bottom here, so I'm gonna soak that out a little bit. At this point, I don't really need to get any taller, but I want to produce more of a belly. That's the technical term for it. A belly in the base of this, because it's gonna be a mug. So that's where I'm gonna, with my inside hand, I'm gonna put a little extra pressure. Keep the speed low. The finger on the outside is just providing some support so that it doesn't, so I don't overdo it. And so I keep a handle on the width of the cylinder, because you never want it to get really thin in some areas and really thick in other areas. You'd like it to be a good consistent width all the way from the bottom to top. Now I'm flattening my hand, kind of like doing this on the inside, and using the pads of 2 fingers on the inside to kind of press outward and form that belly. There we go. I don't know if it's easy to see from that angle, but now it has kind of a roundness at the bottom. And the bottom looks quite good to me. I'm gonna color in the top one more time. Notice I keep on dipping my hands in the water. The clay at this point doesn't need to be any wetter. This is actually a little sloppy. Something that I learned was that instead of using straight water, just grab this gunk, the slip from the outside, and use that. And it's all about lubricating your fingers so you're not sticking to the clay, because that's going to send it off. You want your hands to slide around on the clay and exert force without causing any damage. There, so I just colored that in, so I've got a nice round belly. And the last little touch, well, I'm gonna grab my rib. This is a flexible rib. The different colors mean that they have different flexiness. In old times, you know, this would have been an actual rib, like from an animal. But I have a wooden one over here that I use sometimes. Haven't used it yet tonight. This one lets me, you know, put a little curve in it and then rub it along the side of the pot, and that compresses the particles in the clay, and it also kind of aligns it aligns the particles in the clay and compresses them so that you're less prone to cracking as it dries if your clay is well smoothed. So the shape of this is a little bit straight at the bottom and then a curve around the little belly. It's got a neck. And then the final touch is I'm going to put a little flare at the top. Just by putting a little pressure near the brim. It's easy to overdo that step, but I think I pretty much nailed it. That's a little messy there, so the sponge does a nice job of cleaning up some of the gunk that accumulated there. And there we go, that'll do. It looks like a huge thing right now. Like this is massive. If I was gonna drink coffee out of it, that would be way too much. But I have to remember, this is gonna shrink by 12%. It's gonna shrink once when I bisque fire it, and it's gonna go down, you know, a little bit. And then when I do the final firing with glaze, it's gonna shrink even more. So, yeah, you should throw big and then count on that, because you know it's gonna get smaller. The next thing I'm gonna do is I will trim off that skirt again. Just get all that excess clay out of there. Because you know, when I come back here in 2 days, I'm gonna take this pot, flip it over, center it again. It will be not leather hard, but it'll be firm. And at that point, I will trim the bottom of it and put a foot in it. So there's no need to have all this extra clay there. It's just gonna get in the way right now. Once again, using that old tool. Old Faithful. This is a piece of wire between two little dowels. I don't know if it's technically called floss, but I call it flossing. So you just take that, slide it under, and that releases my pot from the wheel head. Take this little tiny bat here. Now this technique, if your clay is really sloppy and wet, you can screw up your pot like right now. This is where this is the moment of truth. But this clay is still quite firm. I'm throwing it firm. Didn't get it all sloppy and wet. Now, if I lift straight up, I'm gonna warp it because I'm gonna be putting a lot of pressure inward. If I try to twist it. I'm gonna screw it up there. Since I've flossed underneath, the technique that I find works really well is I take fingers like that, get them under here, lots of contact, and then I slide straight towards me. And then I just felt it release. So there we go. This does warp the bottom a tiny, tiny bit. So it's not perfect along the bottom because I released it from the bat that way, but it works and it's easy. And I find that's a technique that works for me anyway. So there it is. Oh no, you know what happened? I think we've got a problem. So I just talked you through this whole adventure. Check this out. I just flossed off the bat, pulled it off, and I got a hole. I pulled this so thin on the inside that when I flossed off the bat with this like two millimeters of clearance, I didn't floss close enough. I left a hole in the bottom. So that one goes back in the reclaim bucket. You win some, you lose some, you know? That's the nature of it. Now, like, I could have salvaged that and turned it into a plant pot with, the drainage hole in the bottom, but you know what? I didn't really feel like making a plant pot today. That was meant to be a mug. So let's just chalk that up to, we had a nice conversation about pottery. And you got to see me throw something that didn't work out. It's a lesson learned, you know? We're all just making sandcastles here. Yeah, sometimes they don't work. You get things that explode in the kiln. You get glazing that runs off in a weird way or doesn't look the way you want it to. And with pottery, you have to learn to take the losses. And this is just one of those. So I wedged 10 balls of clay tonight. I had 9 successful pieces, and the last one was a bust. Oh well. Hope you tune in for other videos. I mean, I like making them. So I may as well call it a night. Have a good one, everybody. Take care.